If you feel constantly low, scattered, or like something is quietly leaching your vitality, listen closely. Your energy may be leaking because your pineal, the subtle third eye within, is being blocked, and that blockage functions like a tap left half closed on your inner current. By the end of this listening, you will have a simple, body-centered way to check for that leak, and a short declaration you can speak to begin aligning the frequency of your system. If you're here to test this now, type recognition in the comments and stay with me. Start with a moment of honesty. Many of the seekers I walk with say, "I've done the practices, I pray, I fast, I show up, but still I feel drained." That pattern appears across traditions and ages. There is an account, not from a church manual, but from the edges of early Christian thought, found among texts discovered at Nag Hammadi, and preserved in fragments like the Gospel of Philip. Those texts describe a teaching about origin, memory, and an inner verification, a way for a person to recognize that they carry a spark from a primordial source called Mon. This was preserved because it allowed direct recognition without intermediaries, and that very possibility made it dangerous to controlling systems. Over time, that knowledge was buried, and the means of simple, embodied verification were muted. To make sense of how your energy could be siphoned, we need a very brief map. Imagine Mon as the primordial source, an ocean of presence that sent flecks of itself, fragments, into material vessels. The material realm, in this account, is structured by a builder figure often called the demiurge, who erects a dense field where perception is dulled. To maintain that field, certain intelligences, named in those writings as archontes, act like frequency engineers, tuning and retuning the perceptual field so that most people feel cut off from their original source. One of the primary ways they do this is by interfering with the subtle antenna at the center of perception, the pineal, the so-called third eye. When the pineal's tuning is impeded, it is not a medical diagnosis I am making. Rather, imagine a radio whose dial has slipped. The signal becomes fuzzy. You lose clarity. Energy that would normally flow through the field of perception gets redirected or dissipated. The 3 marks I will ask you to find are the ancient checkpoints: tangible, bodily loci where that connection can be felt, noted, and, in many cases, reawakened. They were taught as practical proofs. If your body carries these signatures, there is a trace of origin within. If they are dulled, that is often where the interference is most obvious. The 3 marks are simple to locate. The first mark sits at the base of the skull, where the head meets the spine. Place the flat of your hand there and notice the area directly above the bony ridge. This is an anchor point, a place where the vessel can sense its grounding to source. The second mark appears along the outer edge of the hand, between the pinky and the wrist, the area many of us rub when anxious, the side of our hand that finds the edges of things. Run a finger along that line and notice whether it reads like a plain field, a small ridge, a coolness, or a subtle concentration of sensation. This is the perception mark, the line that opens to second sight when it awakens. The third mark is the central command, the hollow above the sternum, just above the heart, at the center of the chest where breath meets intention. Rest your fingers lightly there and sense for warmth, for a pulse that is not merely the heartbeat but a felt clarity of voice, the point from which words can carry the frequency of Mon when the channel is open. Finally, hold attention for the pineal area, the center of the forehead, between the eyebrows, often called the third eye. This is the antenna, valve. Do not press deeply. A light, optional touch to the brow center, or simply resting your attention there, is enough. Think of the pineal as a tiny tuning fork. When it vibrates in alignment with your deeper source, the marks brighten. When it is muffled, everything else seems dull. Let me be very clear about boundaries. This is not a medical examination. I am not instructing you to diagnose a condition or to stop seeing a health professional if you need one. The touch I will invite is gentle, safe, and optional. A sensory check, not a procedure. Treat everything you sense as subjective data. It is yours to notice and interpret. Many traditions emphasize exactly this kind of somatic confirmation as the beginning of recollection, anamnesis, the remembering that you belong to a greater current. If you are ready, perform this simple verification with me now. Find a chair or stand in a place where you won't be disturbed. Soften your gaze and breathe slowly, as you would to listen to a distant bell. Bring your hand to the base of your skull. Lay your palm across that junction where skull meets neck and allow your senses to settle. Notice texture, temperature, any tightness, or perhaps a quiet stillness. Do not narrate or judge, only notice. Some people feel a small hollow, a warmth, a slight vibration. Others feel nothing at first. That nothing is meaningful too. A muted mark suggests the field there is being dampened. Stay with this observation for a few breaths, letting each in-breath make the sensing slightly clearer. Now shift your hand to the outer edge of the opposite palm, along the line between pinky and wrist. Trace gently, as you would along the margin of a map. What do you find? A ridge? A line of sensitivity? A place that seems thick or numb? This mark often reads like a threshold. It tells you how your perception meets the world. When the pineal is heavy, this line can feel flattened or indistinct. Finally, bring your fingertips to the central hollow above the sternum. Rest them there and feel neither pressure nor force, but a presence. Many report a warmth, a subtle expansion, or the sense of a small decisiveness in the chest. A poised place from which clear speech can arise. If you feel a dullness or a stubborn cloud there, that is commonly where the system of control has quieted your capacity to command your field. After feeling these three places, rest your attention lightly at the center of your forehead, the third eye. You can place a single finger there with the most delicate touch, or you can simply let your attention hover. Do not press. The suggestion is merely to sense. Notice any pulsing, coolness, tingling, or a sense of pressure. Often, a blocked pineal will feel muffled or empty. A clear pineal will feel like a small receptive space where images or subtle impressions arrive more readily. Again, none of these sensations is a final verdict. They are simply data points. At this point, most people will experience an immediate inner commentary. A sentence will appear, "This is nonsense," or "I know it's placebo," or "This is dangerous." Those thoughts are not an accident. They are precisely the feedback we expect. The mind's quick skepticism has been trained to protect the comfortable narrative of separation. In the cosmology we're using, those skeptical reflexes are part of the interference pattern, signatures of the field that wants to keep things as they are. Observe the thought the way you observed the sensations. Notice it, note its tone, and do not engage. That witnessing itself is a small act of sovereignty. If you notice the marks brightly, a warmth at the sternum, a ridge at the hand, an anchoring at the skull, and some responsiveness at the brow, then what appeared as blocked may simply be an intermittent dampening. If the marks read dim, that's useful information too. It highlights where the interference is strongest and where to direct attention. Both are work to do, and both are part of the same discovery. Let me explain why these three places matter together. The base of the skull is the anchor. It ties the head's perceptual faculty into the body's compass. The hand edge is the heuristic. It tests how perception meets the world. The sternum is the command node, the place from which a person speaks into their own field. The pineal sits in the middle as the tuner. When the tuner is muffled, the anchor is loose, the heuristic blunted, and the command weak. Energetic interference that targets the pineal reduces the throughput of clarity. That leakage is what many experience as chronic depletion. Those interferences are not always overtly hostile. They operate like biased broadcast stations that favor certain wavelengths and dampen others. They encourage a life where dependence on external narratives, authorities, and systems becomes the default. This is why the ancient teachers emphasized direct verification. It bypasses the need for a middleman and returns authority to the living vessel. Now, this is the practical part. A short activation you can do to begin aligning your frequency. It is brief, safe, and repeatable. It is not a promise of total awakening, and it does not substitute for care in other domains of your life. Many who practice it regularly report increased clarity, less habitual drain, and a sense of strengthened boundaries. Some report almost no immediate sensation. All of that is within the range of normal. Prepare your space. Sit upright, feet on the floor, spine long. Place one hand on the base of the skull, the other resting at the center of your chest. Breathe in through the nose, exhale through the mouth, letting tension unwind. Feel the weight of your hands anchor you. As you inhale, imagine drawing a narrow column of quiet upward from beneath the base of your skull, a steady thread that lifts the back of the head into clarity. As you exhale, imagine the sternum exhaling into a small, authoritative ring of calm, your voice beginning to hold a steadier frequency. Repeat this cycle 3 times, each time allowing more space between inhale and exhale. Shift now. Let your fingertips trace the outer edge of the hand, lingering where you sensed that mark. Gently bring attention to any texture or line. As you do, internally say, without drama, I remember. Not as a belief to be adopted, but as a recognition to be tested. If a resistant thought appears, this is silly. This is vanity. Notice it without argument. The thought is part of the field. Your attention witnessing it weakens its hold. When you are ready, bring your attention to the brow center. Keep your hands where they are, chest and skull, and let the brow telescope open like a delicate receiver accepting a faint signal. Take an inhale, and on the exhale, speak the activation phrase. I remember my source, my sight clears, I command. Say it aloud if you can. If not, move the phrase silently, but with intent. This phrase is designed to be short, direct, and to line up 3 actions: recall, perceive, and claim. It is not a magical formula guaranteed to change external circumstances. It is a trigger for the field inside you to retune. After speaking, pause internally and notice what has shifted. You may feel a warmth at the chest, a slight tingling at the brow, a loosening at the base of the skull, or perhaps just a small change in mood. You might notice nothing at all. That is a result too. If intrusive skepticism swells, practice the witness posture. I see you, thought, and return to the felt field. Over time, with repetition and intentional attention, the frequency aligns more often and the leaks reduce. Many will wonder, what if persistent feelings of exhaustion have a medical source? That is an important question. If fatigue is severe, sudden, or accompanied by other concerning symptoms, consult a healthcare professional. The practice I offer sits in the realm of spiritual work and personal verification. It complements care. It does not replace it. There is one more piece to the puzzle: social and cultural systems. Certain systems of control have historically preferred that people forget their direct access to source. When communities can verify inwardly, the external gatekeeping loses its leverage. That is why the technique of embodied checking and short declarations was often suppressed. Reclaiming this practice is not merely about individual clarity. It is a subtle act against structures that benefit from dependency. You might be thinking, will this remove all my confusion? Will it make me immune to emotional overwhelm? No. This work gives you tools to notice where your own economy of attention is leaking and to begin to tighten those leaks. It strengthens your capacity to notice intrusive patterns, to speak with more authority, and to protect your energy. The aim is not perfection, but increasing sovereignty. If this resonated and you want guided activations like this, subscribe and join the conversation. Share your experience in the comments with the word recognition so we can hold each other accountable and learn together. Before we close, a few practical notes that preserve safety and integrity. Do not use force on the body. The touch suggested is always light. If touching causes pain or discomfort, stop and simply use attention instead. Do not ingest substances or perform invasive actions as part of the activation. Keep the work accessible, rhythmic, and repeatable. A practice, not a single cure. I want to return to the opening claim. Your energy is being drained by a blocked pineal. That statement is not offered as a banner to frighten you, but as an invitation to test. The ancient writings I referenced, those found among Nag Hammadi material and the Gospel of Philip, emphasize direct remembrance. They tell us that verification is possible, and that memory, not doctrine, remakes the vessel. When you find the marks, attend them. When you find the resistance, observe it. When you speak to your field, short, clear, and with intention, you begin to retune your instrument. In closing, remember this. Reclamation happens in small, steady acts. A gentle touch to the base of your skull, a soft tracing of your hand's edge, a brief breathing cycle, and then a clear, simple statement spoken with intent. These are not dramatic rituals but small commitments to recovery. They remind the field within you that you are available to remember. If you tested the 3 marks and said the declaration, notice now how the room feels. Notice whether your attention sits more steady or returns to its old scatter. Hold that observation tenderly. Come back to this practice when you notice the drain returning. Over time, what was intermittent can become more consistent. Thank you for listening and for choosing to check. If this reached you, if you felt even a small shift, leave recognition in the comments and we will build a space for reports and questions. Subscribe if you want more guided activations and deeper explorations into this lineage of remembrance. Walk gently with this knowledge. It is both a personal reclamation and a quiet act of defiance against systems that prefer forgetfulness. Your energy is not meant to slip away. Begin where you are. Check the base, read the hand, speak from the chest, listen with the brow. Clear the pineal enough to stop the draining and begin to remember.